Hey, what's poppin'? Long time no see. A little bit of an unscripted, unprofessional video. Still got my silk bonnet on from last night, but I wanted to talk about the Persona 4 revival trailer. Which, by the way, I wasn't watching the Xbox thing, so that thing just like came out of nowhere and smacked me in the face, and I was like, "What?" But yeah, I guess what I want to talk about is like my mixed feelings about the remake at all. You know, like Persona 3 Reload was a remake that I was always like, oh, this needs to happen because Persona 3 gameplay wise is really like the original Persona 3 is kind of archaic and it's not up to like what the modern Persona standard is. Like even by Persona 4, I think the very simple fact that like Persona 4 has it so you can control all your party members as an option and also like made social links a lot more accessible and more interesting. Like it already completely eclipsed three in my opinion in terms of like being a modern relevant game. So like by the time Persona 5 came out and like it became so much more stylistically like defined the series did, it was like 3 always had that coming and kind of needed it. I still think the 3 remake, well, from the little bit I've played of it, because I didn't finish, but like structurally follows the original a little bit too much, maybe. But I also you can't change it too much. Like I think they could have went further in that regard. But I mean, it is what it is. It was a pretty faithful remake, all things considered. But like when I think about 4, I'm like, I feel a lot more mixed about it simply because like 4 as a game has aged way better for one. It's two also a lot more personally iconic for me. So like there is a part of it where it's like my biases specifically in regards to for like this is very nostalgic for me. It's very precious to me. So when I think about the idea of like the voice cast being replaced, for example, I feel like this twinge of like man. And like that's basically been all but confirmed for at least a few members of it. Like I tried to do some research and find out if that's true for everybody. Like there's people in the comments acting like, oh yeah, they're definitely gonna replace Johnny Young Bosch, which I really hope they don't for Adachi and also the protagonist. Like I'd be okay if the protagonist got his performance replaced, not the same for Adachi. But anyways, like it seems pretty much like the trend, especially if you look at Reload, where like a lot of the voice actors didn't come back except for like a handful of characters in the background. Like, for example, I feel like it's unlikely the entire cast is probably gonna get replaced because like in the original, like Elizabeth was still there, you know, like she was still voiced by Tara Platt in spite of the fact that Mitsuru wasn't also, you know. So I feel like one or two people might have that situation going on with them, but like it's already been confirmed that Chie's voice actor is not in it. Yuri Lowenthal isn't there, which is crazy. And also, like, apparently he begged, according to like a post he made on Blue Sky at some point. Like, there was a definite attempt to be there, and it was like, nah, which is like a little concerning. I really do wonder because there's some people where it's like if they're willing to draw the line so hard at somebody as iconic as Yuri Lowenthal, who's like actively trying to at least be like a background character or something, it's like, damn, man. The prospects for everybody else isn't looking great, you know. And then like, I guess even going beyond like my own preferences for the performances, like also just like the aesthetic of like the PS2 game or like the experience of like how much Persona 4 is based around the idea of it being a television show or like being on a CRT display. Like the old UI was literally like a turn dial for a TV, and like the limitations of the graphics kind of gave it like a sepia tone look, which like really played up the fog in a lot of ways as well, and like that graininess kind of being lost due to like HD revisions and like constantly making things look better is another thing that's like, man, like, so I feel like Persona 4 and Persona 4 Golden as experiences are so complete, so whole, and so like quality that remaking 4 feels less necessary than remaking 3. The only reason they're doing it is because one, it'll make them a ton of money, and two, 4 really does stand out as not being modernized because they already remade 3, you know? And because 5 exists. It's like this idea that, hey, everything needs to be lifted to the side, to the pedigree of 5, and all 3 of these games are very popular, so we need to bring them all up into this. Like, I understand the reason why you want to do that, and I'm actually quite excited. It looks really nice. Like, in spite of me being like, there is a certain authenticity lost in the changing of the graphics, I do think that like what they're doing with the artistic design and also like kind of like the cell shading on it, it really does look quite nice. And it looking at the environments, I was like, man, this looks great. And I honestly, considering how genuinely faithful script wise the original game was, the no reload was for 3, I feel like it's probably going to just be a straight remake, maybe even just a remake of the OG Persona 4, which would be a little weird. I think they probably should do the golden content, unlike MP3, where it's like, okay, the answer is not that necessary. You don't necessarily need to bring that back. And to be fair, it's like golden is so incredibly like tied in, woven into the experience, that I feel like depending on what they do, it could be potentially very controversial. But where was I again? Yeah, no, the game looks really nice, and I'm sure it will be a pretty faithful remake. I wonder a bit though about like the script, because there are definitely elements of Persona 4 that I think might have aged a little bit worse than P3, or at least a little bit more sharply. Like, Yosuke's character is very much a product of the 2000s. And I don't mean that in a bad way. In fact, I think it's pretty effective in that regard. But also, like, he's very homophobic, like, openly. And I don't know how much that's going to fly in 2025. I mean, I personally think, like, if it's going to be a faithful remake, then yeah, you kind of have to keep those elements of his character. Mind you, I do think they should make him dateable. They so should, because that was part of the plan of the original. And like, if you're not gonna do it now, you're a bunch of fucking cowards. Especially if you change his dialogue to make him less homophobic, but you don't do the thing that would actually make like fans happy. For shame. But like, I don't know. I feel like Persona 4, especially when it comes to tackling certain topics, has been controversial, or at very least is a lot more daring. Like, P3 does a lot darker things, but in terms of like social commentary, is a lot lighter. I tend to think, like, it's more grounded in a place of like heightened reality or fiction. I feel, especially when it comes to like the death cults and stuff. It's like, yes, suicide is kind of a theme. Death is kind of a theme. It is a theme, a huge theme in P3, but it's also like not as heavy handed about it, in a way that you can talk about this because it's so high concept, and it's not like touching on anything that's like personal. But then you look at something like the dungeons in P4, which are like super relevant to like things in P5 as well, which is like a connection I always appreciated. But like, you look at P4, and it's like P4 has like plot lines like kanjis, which is very complicated and could very easily be perceived in a ignorant, or like it's ambiguous enough to where like it can apply to a lot of different things without necessarily being like, oh, he's gay, even though that is kind of the implication. That's like straight up probably true, but like like, it's not just he's gay, and it's very easy like to look at that and be like, especially Naoto. Naoto is a really interesting situation where like I think the message is supposed to be like gender politics in the workplace. It's more Mulan than it is like a full-on trans narrative, even though you can definitely read it that way, and that wouldn't be at all unacceptable. It's like those elements are very particular in the way that they are originally, and they're controversial. Like people have misinterpreted them. People have like had very bad faith versions of these, or like versions of these that aren't necessarily like what I would agree with personally. Like, and like depending on how sensitive the writing team is and how much they're willing to change these elements, it could potentially change the game quite a lot, which could be for the best, it could be for the worst. Hard to say. It's just I'm sensitive to change, so I'm noting it. I'm like, this could be very interesting depending on how much they change it. Like, for example, there's a key difference, and probably there's a good difference actually between the original P5 and like P5 Royal, especially when it comes to like homophobia as like a relevant point. Is that there was like two NPCs in the original Persona 5 who like are used as a gag, and they're clearly like two like middle-aged gay dudes who flirt specifically with Ryuji, and it's kind of treated as like the whole gag in the original is treated as like, oh, these gay guys are sexually harassing Ryuji. Isn't that funny for everybody involved? Like, one, we're stereotyping gay people as harassers, and also, isn't it funny to see Ryuji be harassed by grown men when he is a minor? It's like, it's a really fucking unfunny, problematic joke that is very P4 era, mind you. But, like, in Royal, they change their personalities entirely. They're less like, oh, I'm trying to assault a teenager, and more like, oh, I want to change your outfit. Like it's a much more camp and harmless and toothless representation of what they were doing originally, which is good in my opinion. But like, if they're willing to make a change like that in Royal, then I'm sure they're probably gonna make changes to Yosuke, for example, who says a lot of really out of pocket shit to Kanji. And like a lot of the humor involving that at the time was like, man, isn't it so funny that like Kanji might be gay? Isn't it so like weird and uncomfortable? Which like 2012 me would have been like, haha, because it's 2012. But now me, I'm like, oh, I don't know how much the humor still stands up on this. But also, I don't know, it has implications for Yosuke's character in general. I think the really simple fix is to just make him dateable, because if you make him dateable, then then his internalized homophobia is a lot more like, it's pointed, you know? It's like it's like the problem is not because he's actively trying to be homophobic. It's like he's internalized certain ideas and also fighting with his own stuff, which doesn't make it harmless, but it makes it more understandable, I think. But anyways, yeah, I think I've more or less exhausted some of my topics. I think going back on the voice acting thing, it'll be it'll be interesting. Like I've read some articles that have pointed to a very like highlighted the issue in a certain way. Like the Persona 3 remake getting a new cast makes sense to me because the original cast, a lot of them did a great job. But there's also like Vic Mignogna who is, is still a controversial figure and like doesn't get work with the same circles he used to because of accusations that may or may not be true. And then there's also cases like Fuka's original voice actor who wasn't like that great and was made fun of for a long time for having like a kind of bad performance and like was replaced entirely by Wendy Lee in like later games and stuff like that. Like it was a much more rough, it was like an earlier game, it had a rougher dub. That kind of like complete overhaul made sense, and it's like Atlas clearly wants to bring in new talent, but uh, like 4 is a lot harder because 4 is a way more beloved dub, I would say. And even when they did change it in Golden, like there was one controversy about that with like the Teddy voice actor being replaced and the Chie voice actor being replaced. But like even then they're still really beloved, you know? Like the new performances are really beloved. And I'm sure that'll be true about the remake also. I'm sure they'll do great. It's just like the need to replace them seems a little strange, especially again when it seems like a lot of the original voice cast wanted to be involved, and they're just like, nah, fuck you, we're doing new people. It's like it feels weird. It feels weird, and I think that's kind of my vibe on the remake in general. It's like I understand why it's happening. I get it, but I feel super impassioned about the fact that Persona 4 is getting remade. It's like no, because it's not a game that needed it. It's kind of like Final Fantasy 7 remake versus like the fact that like 9 is apparently supposed to be remade. Like, do I care about 9 being remade as much, even remotely as much? No, not even. In fact, I have my own feelings about Final Fantasy 7 remake too, and like not all of them are positive, not all of them are negative, but like some games, like I understand why that had to happen because one, people have been asking for a while, and two, the original game looks the way it does. You know, like it aged way worse than the later games on the PS1, so it makes sense. But like 9 doesn't really need a remake. 8 does, but like why are we skipping it? You know, it's stuff like that. Like some games are really evergreen and don't need remakes. In fact, I could go on a whole other rant involving that. Like I was thinking about the fact that like very few Zelda games have had actual remakes, for example, and like I don't really think a lot of them need them. Like, would I ever want a Wind Waker full-on remake? No, that's stupid. The original Wind Waker aged so well, and we have Wind Waker HD, which also still looks great. Why the fuck do we need a remake, for example? Like that, I don't think would ever need to happen. But like remaking is such a common trend in like the industry right now, and I don't like it's the same kind of thing that has happened with like Hollywood constantly trying to remake. I just think video games are way more successful at it. Like video games when they make remakes is like yeah, some of these are really actually quite good. Like RE2 remake, fantastic. Mind you, RE3 remake is not as good. But it's like you can make a remake and have it be very, very, very successful and very good. So like, why not? In some cases, it's harder to be like, oh, this is a destructive trend. But there's also plenty of games where I'm like, you can't really remake it like that, you know? Like a full-on remake might lose a lot of its charm or a lot of the particular visions and cultural influences that were originally present. Some games are just better off just being remastered, honestly, or like being added, giving new features or like a facelift. Another example of a series that like has been doing a lot of remakes and like there's a very glaring remake that could happen that I'm like, but should it? Like the Metroid series, like there are two, like the Metroid series is officially remade the two 8-bit games, Metroid 1 and Samus Returns, and that was just becoming a whole discussion on remakes. I'm gonna chop it up. It's fine. But like Samus Returns has been remade and so has the original Metroid. And there seems like there's kind of a pressure now on Super Metroid where like some people really want to remake and some people like me really don't, because I'm like we've done two remakes. There is also like Dread, which is considered to be like the most modern version of it and is a lot more accessible for people, I think. And like Super Metroid is a super iconic game. If it did get a remake, people would be like, there'd be plenty of people who were super excited. A lot of people will experience that game for the first time. However, Samus Returns was a somewhat controversial remake, and in fact, so is Zero Mission to a degree with certain crowds, because it does change things about the story. And like some people have like in retrospectives and stuff expressed like it leaves things less ambiguous, but like in the case of like that game, I feel like its updates are generally better. Mind you, I'm biased because I played Metroid One originally through that game, but like Samus Returns, I totally agree. Like it made a lot of really big changes that aren't all good, and like Super Metroid's legacy, not just as a influential game within the genre, but also just like as a freeform and extremely breakable game that is like a speedrunning darling. Like I feel like remaking that game, you could potentially strip it of all of its sauce, in which case it's like, why are we doing this? Like I see there's places where you could update it, like specifically like control scheme. You can really like simplify the control scheme and stuff like that. For sure, there could be benefits, but it's like I think if you remake Super Metroid, you need to make it more saucy than it originally was. Like you need to keep the glitches, make them features, and then also add more shit on top of it, more sequence breaks, ways to play the game even faster. Like you need to double down on the design philosophy and the things that people love about Super Metroid and have made Super Metroid a legendary game, rather than scaling back and like minimalizing and trying to make things more modern. Like I don't think you can just take Super and then just remake it in friggin' Dread style. Like same control scheme, same physics and everything. No, I like one, the level design wouldn't be compatible, but two, it's like so much of that game works the way it does because because of like the particular, like so much of what makes that game so memorable and so much of what is kept that game alive for so many years is its glitches, is its exploits, is its like really fringe mechanics like beam combos and stuff, or like the crystal flash. And like if you strip any of that away, you lose the soul of Super Metroid, in which case why are we making a remake? Like what is the point? Like another example of something like that would be like if they remade Melee, but then like got rid of wave dashing. It's like it's not Melee then. What's the point? Like you can't do that. You know, like if you do that, you're objectively creating a divide in which like the original game isn't isn't as viable, or isn't as like isn't what it was. It isn't the thing that people fell in love with it and were able to continue to play for years and years and years without. You know. Like Prime Remake, for example, also cut out a lot of glitches because it's based on a later version of the game that already had changes. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like modern game sensibilities and game design would dictate that like these quote unquote issues are problems that need to be fixed because it's unprofessional, instead of seeing it as like what people would have justified it as in the 90s, since they couldn't remake the game. They'd be like, it's a feature. Like I think that it's a feature mentality would be necessary if you're ever going to remake Super Metroid. You can't just do it. And like again, to go back to P4, I guess, which was the thing that sparked this conversation, like a lot of the bumps grooves in such a of like the original, like so much part of its identity, and I think that's like 10 times more relevant for Super Metroid, to where it's like I personally wouldn't want a remake of it unless they're able to recapture that magic, which I don't know if they can. Like especially since I don't think even the original devs, like if Yoshio Sakamoto tried to like, mind you, a lot of the original devs aren't even still working on Metroid, but like if Yoshio Sakamoto revisited this game, he would probably try to streamline the story elements a lot more. Probably there'd probably be more like cutscenes. It'd be a lot more grandiose. But like these mechanics, might just get cut out. Mind you, Zero Mission has proved me the fuck wrong before, because Zero Mission also added in like one wall jumping and stuff like that. Maybe they will literally be like, hey, this game specifically has such a friggin' huge like speedrunning history, and like so many people who have played it back to front, exploited all these different ways. We should keep as many of those like glitches and mechanics and just make them intentional. Maybe they will. Maybe they will add new things. Maybe they'll take this opportunity to be like, what cool, weird movement options can we give Samus in this remake to make it like even better? But I don't know for sure, and it's really an ambiguous thing. And I guess that's like my perspective. It's like remakes have the possibility of being really useful, of really being like influential, being really revolutionary, really bringing things into a new generation while simultaneously like also keeping everything everybody loved. But they also have the potential to like completely strip it of a soul, like what you see from like Disney movies or from certain remakes, which are just like hack jobs basically, like or like Resident Evil 3, for example, where like a lot of the content and like efficacy of that setup was wasted, was squandered, or like overly modernized or overly streamlined in a way that actually makes it worse than its original, which is like absolutely not what I would want from something like Super Metroid. It's so tricky, and I think a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people are just like, well, I want Super Metroid in 3D with good graphics, so remake it. And it's like, you don't get it. You can't just do that. You can't just do that and have it be the same. You know, it would be as grand of a thing. Super Metroid is larger than life. It's not something that even more than like Persona 4, where this started from. It's too big. And I say that with the sense that like what it is as a product, what it is as a part of the community, is too it has a life of its own beyond what the game is on its own objectively, to the point where capturing that is just as important as the actual gameplay itself. Like being able to honor that is super important, which is not something you can just do by directly remaking the game or like modernizing it. And like the replacement mentality is something I really actually I've looped back around to something I actually wanted to talk about. The idea of like remakes being a replacement entirely of the original media really kind of saddens me. It doesn't disgust me. It doesn't even like it just saddens me. Like the idea that because there's a Persona 4 remake coming along, there will be people who never, ever, ever look at the original or Golden again. Mind you, if you're smart, you will still just buy and play Golden because it's way cheaper. But like, there are people who in the future, when like getting into the Persona series, will never play the original versions of those games. Never. Because they're just like, well, why would I do that when there's a just shinier new version? And then they miss out on certain things that are really iconic about the original, or like certain artistic decisions, like P3 remake. I've said that like it's a necessary remake and it's a good remake, but it's also a remake that sanitizes things a lot. Like moments that I found really impactful in the original, I'm like, wow, this is not anywhere near as crazy. Like, or even like the really unique artistic design on like some of the animated cutscenes back then, which is like very of the era, but also like really dark and stylistic, are just not captured the same when you make them in 3D cutscenes, or like in the way that they're done. Like the answer had some controversy with like a certain scene that was like really violent and disturbing in the original, like not in like a triggering kind of way, but just kind of in like a whoa, that's really creepy and like wild and like impactful and memorable, whereas like the remake is just like It's just like they just kind of like made it nothing, and now it's like, and I understand that, like, personally, like, I don't have as much of an attachment to that as other people do, but I also fully understand why people, well, somebody would be like, wow, this was super interesting originally, and then they just removed it. It's like not a huge deal, but it's like the preservation aspect of like re-releases versus a remake is to keep things like that like vision, that like original creative idea that like can't be replicated or like won't be preserved in a newer version and will just be forgotten to time and like fall by the wayside despite being so important. It's sad, I think, and that's what, like one of the things about remakes that I don't like. It's like the idea that a Chrono Trigger remake, for example, could come out in the next couple of years, which like maybe not really, but could come out in the next couple of years and then completely replace or like get people to never touch the SNES original ever again. It's like that's so sad because that game is fantastic and aged so well. It's great. It's timeless, in fact. But like people won't know that anymore because they will play this new shiny version and be like, "Wow, this is so much better than the original." Like, wow, I'm surprised they were able to do so many cool things with this. And mind you, some people are open-minded enough to be like, okay, there's a remake made, so let me go check out the original after the fact. And that's actually sometimes the footstepping that a re-release can have. Like, the, like 999, like Zero Escape 999 and, The World Ends With You, Final Remix are examples of that, where, like, those games were so DS. They're so DS, like, they were designed for the DS. So much so that even their remakes are like, it's still trying to emulate those DS elements to a certain degree. And there's certain things that are just lost in the remaster. Even though, like, objectively not a lot has changed. Like, they're still using very similar graphic designs and stuff like that. In fact, the music especially is exactly the same, you know? The uh like art design is objectively the same. The like code is the same. The puzzles are the same. Like it's all the dialogue, everything is the same, but like certain things still need to be sacrificed to adapt into the modern era. And because it's just a remaster, it's like not that different. Like people aren't gonna be inspired to go back, you know. And then you have it's just like remakes where it's like people might be inspired to go back, which is nice, but also I don't know, it doesn't work for everything. Like people were brought up with the Metroid 2 remake, like Samus Returns. Like the original ending of Metroid 2 is more impactful than the original in a way. You know, there's something beautiful about how silent and simple it is that is not at all there in the remake, at least the Nintendo one. And it's like, man, you just can't, like, that is gonna become something that's completely lost to people unless you're like really hardcore and want to go back and try it, like me. Like that the beauty of that moment and like the original intentions and the like simple aspect of that is just gone. Like it's just gone entirely out of the cultural zeitgeist, which is sad. It's sad. Like there is something about simplicity and the way that people used to do things that is something of a lost art because of how much our perception, our attention spans, things like that have changed over time, or like the stylistic choices have changed over time, or what we think is okay or acceptable or make money has changed. And so, like, things that were actually quite beautiful or quite thought out back in the day are just like seen as not modern or not even seen at all. Just they just suddenly disappear, and you wonder like, where did that go, man? I don't know. Maybe I'm just waxing philosophical at this point, waxing poetic. I don't know. I've been talking too long. My point here is just like uh, remakes. Remakes can sometimes be very, very, very like straightforward. Like I have this needs to happen, or I have no problem with this, and it's just objectively a good thing. And then there's times where a remake is like, man, like we're losing something in this, and there's a certain charm and a beauty, or like qualities or techniques or like spirits, energies that were present in of like present reflections of the times that they came from that are just gone when you remake it. And the the fact that it's never, it's bittersweet, I guess. It's like the ticking of time. Like things that you once held so dear are now long gone, and remakes in a weird way embody that more so than a lot of other media. Like it is a way of, it brings it to the surface for me more so than other things. And I know this is strange considering I started just talking about my reactions to Persona 4 Revival being announced, which was like such a small teaser. And now here I am getting like really deep. But yeah, no, it's melancholic in a way. I wish people appreciated old games more. I think that's one of my takeaways. Like, I really do. Considering so many, like, I love SNES games or even NES games. Like, I love the way that system sounds. I love the emphasis, the especially when it comes to like video game music and music of the time and even graphical designs. Like, I love like the way the detailedness of sprite designs of that time and how much they were able to do with so little. I love the music in that time, like some of the emphasis, like the way that like bass is so prominent in 90s things where like you can just hear it. You don't need to wear headphones or have like a subwoofer or something. You can just straight hear that shit because nobody's trying to hide it. Like, they don't do that no more. They don't make music that way anymore. It's like it's just never the same, and some people don't appreciate it. But I feel like people need to. I feel like people need to see the charm in that, see the beauty in that, and see how well a lot of these things actually age when you don't judge it from the perspective of it being old on principle. Like this entire medium, this entire technique being outdated, like sprite work and stuff like that. I don't know, man. It's like there's so much effort that goes into some of like the most memorable pieces of media, and people just it's just lost over time. It's sad. But anyways, I have in fact been talking too long. It's 40 minutes. I don't know how I managed to spend so much time on this topic when this was supposed to be a short, and now it's recorded. I recorded it friggin' vertically, even though it's supposed to be a short, but it's gonna end up being like a full ass video just recorded from this perspective. I'm not gonna do anything about it. I might slap a background and make it 4 by whatever, or I might just upload it like this. We'll see what YouTube accepts. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'm done yapping.